second meeting this week that the Raptors have had. They've went to OKC and scrapped and clawed to a 123-114 win. And as you can see, the Thunder struggled. They were outscored 13-4, 1 for 11. They missed the first 6 shots. They didn't make a 3. No defensive rebounds, no steals, no assists. And by the way, Paul George fouled out. So I was watching this game and I was just like, what is going on with Oklahoma City? Because we know how great of a season Paul George has had all year, but then we see him foul out and all of a sudden all these struggles starts to happen. You're watching this, Coach, and you're saying what?
Well, I'm going back to the beginning. I'm looking at Westbrook didn't start the season because he was hurt. Paul George takes over, becomes the leader of the team. Westbrook comes back. He decides, well, I'm going to let Paul George stay in the lead, and he starts struggling, shooting from 2, from 3, and from the free throw line. Paul George gets hurt, missed 3 games. All of a sudden, he's thrust back into the leadership role again, the front runner role. And then Paul George comes back and he can't get it back together. And so they're going through this chemistry issue that they really shouldn't be doing because they're the main 2 guys that score for them. But, you know, Westbrook is that attack type of guy, and Paul George seems to need the ball in his hands as well. And it just hasn't worked out since the All-Star break.
So it doesn't seem like the 2 are on the same page, although we know that they get along well off the court and at times have got along well on the court. Rex, you agree with Coach's assessment of the Thunder?
Yeah, you know, I think he pretty much summed it up. They are their 2 main scorers and maybe their only 2 scorers. And when both of those guys aren't putting up points, I don't know that they really trust the other guys on the team to say, hey, Jeremy Grant, go get us a bucket. Steven Adams, go get us a bucket. They have to be at the top of their games offensively for this team to win, and they've been struggling lately. They have been up and down. Russell is always a bit mercurial offensively, and if PG's banged up, you know, they could be in for a rough one tonight.
Let's take a look at the Western standings. Coach, you mentioned since All-Star break, 5-10 since the All-Star break. Right now, they're sitting in the 5th spot. When they lost that game to the Raptors, they fell to 8. But when you look at the standings right now, and let's go back and just talk about the game in general, what worries you more about OKC? Is it offensively, where they can't seem to get in the rhythm with their 2 best players, or defensively during this losing streak, they're giving up over 110 points per game?
Well, all during the year, they've been a pretty good defensive team, so you can tell that they're struggling defensively, and it starts with their offense. The more tough shots they miss and the other team gets to run, they don't get to get back and play defense and set up their defense. So they go hand in hand, but when Paul George is in the game and playing his best, he gets quality shots. He's got the size and he has the ability to get quality shots. Russ takes a lot of tough shots and he makes a lot of tough shots, but it also lowers his shooting percentage as he goes about doing that. So they need both of them to be in sync, both of them to be playing well.
We need Russ to play well. Of course, he needs to be mindful of the technical fouls. Hey, Rex, I look at Russ. We all know that the Thunder goes as he goes. He also has the proficiency to turn the ball over a lot. So far this season, the OKC Thunder are 3-8 when he has 7 or more turnovers. So you're looking at Russ. How important is him keeping everything in check with mentally and physically on the court? How important is that?
It's important, but there's a fine balance. We all know 7 turnovers is too much.
Yes.
But I played with some great point guards. Had the luxury of playing with Scott Skiles and Steve Nash, Kevin Johnson, some Jason Kidd, Hall of Fame type guys. And as a coach, I think you have to give those guys some leeway and say, hey, you know, especially a guy like Jason Kidd, he's going to have 3, maybe 4 bad turnovers a game, taking chances. 7 is too much, though. And you can live with Russ having, you know, 2, 3, 4 turnovers in a game, but you get up 7, 8, 9, and you're really putting your team in a bind.
See, I see it a little bit differently. If you have the ball in your hand as much as Russ does and as much as he attacks, I mean, I played against Magic Johnson, and Magic used to have a high number of turnovers in games, but he'd have 15, 16 assists and 6 or 7 turnovers. It just, you know, when you have the ball, you're going to have more turnovers, and everybody's not in sync with you when you're throwing him the ball. And in Russ's case, sometimes his turnovers are getting out of control, and he's not at the pace that he needs to be at. But, I'll live with him. If he's giving me all that positive and nobody else is making turnovers, I can live with 7 turnovers.
He's a man after my own heart, too, because he shoots some of his turnovers, too.
The Thunder definitely need to be in sync on the road. They're 1 game under 500. They're playing the Toronto Raptors, who are outstanding at home. If you look at them so far this season, they've been great. We've seen that they've been able to implement Kawhi Leonard into the system. They played very well with him. They've also played very well without him. Kyle Lowry is going to be out tonight. So far, they're 10-5 without him this season. Right now, they sit 2 games behind the Raptors. So, Coach, we were talking about this before. We've seen the success that the Raptors have had in the regular season over the past few years. Shout out to Nick Nurse, who's done an outstanding job. However, with all these players that have missed games, is that going to translate into success in the postseason?
Well, that's where they're going to have to prove themselves. Playoffs. They've had the last 2 or 3 years really good regular seasons, and they get to the playoffs. DeRozan and Kyle Lowry haven't been able to step up consistently to get them over the hump. Last year was the same thing. Kyle Lowry actually got hurt, and DeRozan couldn't do it. They bring in Kawhi Leonard. Now, we know Kawhi Leonard can do it in the regular season and postseason, but can the rest of those guys step up and have the quality postseason that gets them over the hump with Kawhi leading them?
Rex, I asked you this. When I heard this recently, Pascal Siakam is now the second best player on the Toronto Raptors roster. You hear that and you say what?
Incredible. I mean, you think about where he's come from, where he is now. Man has had an unbelievable basketball season. It's a testament to their staff, their coaching staff, the whole support staff that they have there in Toronto. But what a fabulous story, and he's just getting better, continues to get better.
Now, what about their depth? We all know last season that was their thing. The bench mob was really big. Their benches continued to develop. You spoke about Pascal Siakam was in the conversation for most improved player. Their depth, also adding someone like Gasol, who's been in plenty of playoff battles, how can that benefit them this season in the playoffs?
Well, I think, Coach, you might disagree with this, but you get a guy like Marc Gasol, an incredibly talented guy. I've got to think, even with the injuries, if they can get into the postseason healthy, Marc has to be one of the easiest guys to implement into your offensive and defensive schemes because he's such a smart basketball player. So I think the key for them is just getting all their guys healthy, and then trying to make a big push once they get into the playoffs.
And again, their bench players have to produce. They couldn't play their bench players a lot of minutes last year because they didn't have the same kind of postseason that they had in the regular season. It's great to win in the regular season, and it's important to win in the regular season, but you have to win playoff games before people will take notice that you're a great team.
By the way, Pascal Siakam is giving you 26 points per game over his last 2. He will be on the screen tonight. Now,